Hello everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Tucker. I'm 32 years old, and until about a year ago, I thought I'd met someone special. Someone who could be the one. Looking back now, I realize how quickly attraction can blind you to warning signs that, in hindsight, were flashing red flags from the very beginning. I met June through a dating app. One of those swipe-based ones that everyone uses now. Her profile caught my attention immediately. Beautiful photos, confident smile, bio that suggested she was successful and had her life together. I was working as a senior analyst at a financial consulting firm in Denver, making decent money, but not wealthy by any means. June's photos showed someone who clearly took care of herself. Well-dressed, professional-looking, the kind of woman who seemed out of my league if I was being honest. I sent her a message. Something witty about a detail in her profile, trying to stand out from what I assumed was an inbox full of messages from other guys. Her response came 2 days later. Brief, polite, but not particularly warm. I tried to start a conversation, ask questions, tried to find common ground. Her responses stayed short, sometimes taking days to arrive. Most guys probably would move on, but something about her intrigued me beyond just physical attraction. I kept trying. I would later learn she was single, had been for about 6 months. This encouraged me to keep pursuing despite her lukewarm responses. I continued messaging, always friendly, never pushy. Offered to meet for coffee or drinks. Just to talk, get to know each other, no pressure. It took several weeks of this persistent but respectful pursuit before she finally agreed to meet. We met at a mid-range Italian restaurant on a Wednesday evening. When she walked in, she looked even better in person than in her photos. We ordered drinks and appetizers, started talking, and that's when I discovered she was so much more than just physically attractive. June was genuinely interesting. She'd graduated with a bachelor's degree in business management, ran her own hair salon, employed 3 other stylists, had built it from the ground up over 5 years. She was articulate, funny, and told engaging stories about dealing with difficult clients and the challenges of running a small business. I was impressed. Here was someone beautiful and successful and interesting. The whole package. That first dinner stretched from drinks and appetizers into full meals and dessert. We talked for nearly 3 hours. When we finally left, I felt like I just had one of the best first dates of my life. We started hanging out regularly after that. Meeting for dinners, coffee on weekends, and occasional activities like going to art galleries or local events. One thing I discovered early on, June was an excellent cook. When I'd visit her apartment, a nice 1-bedroom place she rented in a trendy neighborhood, she'd prepare elaborate meals. Dishes from different cuisines I'd never tried made from scratch. It felt intimate and special, made me feel like she was investing in whatever was developing between us. I genuinely felt lucky, like I'd somehow caught the attention of someone who could have had her pick of men, but had chosen to spend time with me. But June took her time before committing to anything official. After about 6 weeks of regular dates and growing closeness, I asked her to be my girlfriend, to make what we had exclusive and official. She said she needed to think about it, wanted to be sure before putting labels on things. I waited, tried not to pressure her, continued treating her well and enjoying our time together. 2 weeks later, she told me yes. She'd be my girlfriend. I felt like I'd won the lottery. Texted my best friend immediately after she left that night. Told him I'd just started dating someone incredible who might actually be the one. The first month of our official relationship seemed perfect. We saw each other at least 3 times a week, communicated daily via text, had great conversations, good physical chemistry, emotional connection that felt deep and real. I was already imagining long-term possibilities, meeting her family, introducing her to mine, eventual engagement, and marriage. The whole trajectory seemed clear in my mind. But by the 2nd month, I started noticing things. We didn't live together. She had her apartment, I had mine. But when we spent time together, a pattern emerged. June loved getting her way. That itself isn't unusual. Everyone has preferences. But when she didn't get her way, she didn't let it go. She'd persist relentlessly until she wore me down. She'd make me do things I'd initially said no to, like eating at expensive restaurants that stretched my budget, buying overpriced items I didn't want to spend money on, or going to events or places I wasn't interested in. And she had a specific tactic that worked disturbingly well. She'd ask for things in front of other people. I'm a private person. I don't like public conflict or scenes. She figured this out quickly. If we were with her friends and she wanted me to take her somewhere expensive, she'd bring it up in front of them. Frame it like we'd already discussed it. I'd feel pressured to agree to avoid looking cheap or causing awkwardness. Then later, when we were alone, I couldn't back out without seeming inconsistent or breaking my word. At first, I found it somewhat amusing. Thought it showed her assertiveness. Even admired her ability to advocate for what she wanted. But by our 6th month together, I recognized it clearly for what it was: manipulation. She was deliberately putting me in positions where I'd feel obligated to say yes, using social pressure and my own personality traits against me. Still, I rationalized it. The relationship had so many good parts. Surely this one flaw didn't outweigh all the positives. I tried talking to her about it once, sat her down seriously, and asked why she felt entitled to manipulate me into doing things. Why does she think she could make me do whatever she wanted, regardless of my own preferences or budget limitations? June looked at me with confusion and said she didn't know what I was talking about. Acted like I was inventing problems. When I tried to give specific examples, she deflected immediately. Said if I loved her, I should want to do things that made her happy. Turned it around like I was the one being unreasonable for questioning her. I tried to explain that love doesn't mean eliminating all boundaries. She needed to be more considerate when requesting things. Should respect that I have limits: financial, temporal, and emotional. She changed the subject abruptly. Started talking about something completely unrelated. When I tried to return to our conversation, she shut down. And after that conversation, nothing changed. If she wanted something, she wanted it immediately. Believed everything else should wait for her desires. Then came the day that ended everything. We'd made plans earlier that day. Agreed we'd meet at my apartment after I got off work around 6. I finished work around 5:30. Called her to confirm timing as I was leaving the office. She answered cheerfully. Said she was already at a restaurant. Gave me the name, an upscale steakhouse downtown I'd been to once before. Very expensive, the kind of place where entrees started at $50. She asked me to meet her there instead of going to my place. I felt immediately uneasy. This wasn't what we'd planned. She was supposed to come to my apartment, not be at a restaurant I hadn't agreed to. But I didn't want to start an argument over the phone about change plans. So I said okay, I'd head that way. I drove to the restaurant, parked in the lot, and walked inside. The hostess asked if I had a reservation. I told her I was meeting someone already here. Gave June's name. She directed me toward the back. I walked through the dining room, scanning tables. Then I spotted June. She was sitting at a large table near the windows, with 3 of her friends. Women I'd met at various social gatherings over our months together. The table was covered with multiple empty plates, wine bottles, cocktail glasses. Clearly, they'd been there for a while, eating and drinking extensively. June saw me approaching, immediately signaled the waiter over, asked him to bring the bill before I'd even reached the table. I walked up, confused about what was happening. Before I could sit down, before I could even say hello, June spoke. She said cheerfully that she'd been waiting for me. She needed me to clear the bill because it was more than she had available in her account. According to her, they hadn't planned to consume this much. It just happened. I stood there trying to process the situation. The waiter appeared with the bill, handed it to June. She immediately passed it to me. I looked at the total. $847. For 4 people. For a meal I hadn't been part of, at a restaurant I hadn't agreed to, on an evening when we'd planned to have a quiet night at my apartment. Far more than I'd budgeted for the evening. More than I could comfortably pay without impacting my carefully planned monthly budget. I felt trapped and manipulated. I looked at June, then at her friends who were watching this exchange with varying expressions of discomfort. I told her politely but firmly that I couldn't pay this bill. It was way beyond my budget. I hadn't planned for an expensive meal for 4 people. June's expression changed instantly. The cheerful expectation vanished, replaced by anger. She asked what I meant by that. Her voice carried to nearby tables. I tried to explain calmly that I didn't have that kind of money available tonight. This wasn't something we discussed. I'd expected a quiet evening at my place, not an $850 restaurant bill. June got angrier. She said that, as her boyfriend, my job was to protect and love her, not to make excuses when a situation presented itself. Then she started comparing me to previous boyfriends. Said other men had never questioned helping her. I was failing at everything compared to them. I stood there feeling my face flush. People were definitely looking now. Her friends shifted uncomfortably in their seats, clearly wishing they were anywhere else. I asked her why she was comparing me to other men. Reminded her of all the times I'd accommodated her requests despite my initial reservations. I asked directly, "Am I not good enough for you?" June yelled almost immediately, "You'll never be good enough for me when you can't clear an insignificant debt." The words hit me like a physical blow. The restaurant seemed to get quieter. People at surrounding tables are openly staring now. I stood there for a long moment, just looking at her, processing what she'd just said publicly. Then something inside me settled. I smiled and said quietly, "You're probably right." Then I turned and walked toward the restaurant exit. June called after me, her voice confused now rather than angry, asking where I was going. I didn't look back, didn't respond, just kept walking. Got in my car, started the engine, and drove away, knowing with absolute certainty that this relationship was over. I got home that evening and sat in my apartment waiting for my phone to ring. Expected June to call any minute, either still angry or ready to apologize. Hours passed. No call came. I'd already decided I wouldn't call her first. If she wanted to salvage this, she'd have to reach out. But I wasn't going to chase her or apologize for not paying a bill I'd never agreed to. I went to bed that night without hearing from her. The next day at work, still no contact. The second day passed. Still nothing from June. I found myself feeling relieved rather than anxious. My head felt clearer than it had in months. The constant low-level stress of managing her expectations and demands had lifted. Third day, still no word. Then, late on the third evening, I got a message. But not from June. It was from one of the friends who'd been at the restaurant. She said she felt I deserved to know what had happened after I left. According to the friend, June had bragged to them before I arrived. Told them her boyfriend would clear the bill without question, no matter how expensive it was. That she had me wrapped around her finger. The friends had been skeptical. Thought it was unfair to test me that way, to set up such an expensive meal without warning and expect me to pay for all 4 of them. But June had insisted she knew I'd come through, that I always did eventually. After I walked out, her friends offered to split the bill immediately. Each paid their portion without complaint. Then they'd told June she'd made a mistake, that she'd probably blown her relationship over a manufactured test that wasn't even necessary. June's response, according to her friend, had shocked them. She'd said confidently that I'd come back begging within a few days. She'd give me a week to grovel, then decide whether to forgive me. The friend said she'd disagreed with the whole thing from the start. They felt I was being treated unfairly. Wanted me to know it had been a deliberate test, not just an unfortunate circumstance. I read the message, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Anger at the manipulation, but also validation. My instincts had been correct. I thanked the friend for telling me. Then I made a decision. Nothing would make me beg June or go back to her. On the 4th day after the restaurant incident, June finally called. I saw her name on my screen. Let go to voicemail. She called again an hour later. Again, I ignored it. Then she decided to send text messages. She talked about how I'd embarrassed her at the restaurant, left her in an awkward situation with her friends, and hadn't made any attempt to contact her since then. She said she was still angry about my behavior, but she was reaching out anyway because she loved me. I read the messages, deleted them, then sent a single reply, "We're done. Don't contact me again." Within seconds, she started calling, but I let it go to voicemail. More texts came in, asking what I meant, why I wasn't answering her calls, demanding an explanation. As I ignored the earlier messages, she tried to guilt me. Said real men don't break up via text. They do it face-to-face like adults. Yet, I didn't reply. More messages came in, getting desperate, then angry, then threatening. Said she'd show up at my workplace and make a scene. I didn't respond to any of it. Just silenced notifications from her number and went about my evening. The next day after work, I came home around 6. Pulled into my apartment complex parking lot, walked to my unit on the second floor. Opened my door to find June sitting on my couch. She'd let herself in with a spare key I'd given her months ago, for emergencies or for times when she'd stay over, and I was running late from work. My immediate reaction was anger. I told her firmly to gather her things. Everything she'd left at my place over the months, some clothes, toiletries, a few books. To leave my key on the counter and go. June refused. Said we needed to talk this through like adults. That she wasn't leaving until we resolved this. I remained calm but firm. Told her she wasn't welcome here and she needed to leave now. She stood her ground. Raised her voice while saying I couldn't just kick her out. That she had a right to be here. I pulled out my phone and called the police non-emergency line. Reported an unwanted person in my residence who was refusing to leave. The dispatcher said officers would be there shortly. June's eyes went wide. She said I was being ridiculous and overreacting as usual. I didn't engage with her. I just waited. 2 officers arrived within 20 minutes. Professionally calm. I explained briefly. I'd given her an emergency access key during our relationship. We'd broken up, and I'd asked her to leave. She was refusing. The officers approached June politely, asked her to gather her belongings and leave the premises. June immediately became hostile toward them, told them they couldn't make her leave. This was her boyfriend's place. She had rights. The officers remained professional, explaining she had no legal right to be there. The lease was solely in my name. She needed to leave voluntarily or be escorted out. June escalated everything, raised her voice at them, used profanity, and refused to cooperate. The officers' patience wore thin. They told her she had 2 options, walk out on her own or be escorted in handcuffs. Finally, June started angrily gathering her things, stuffing items in a bag, slammed my key down on the kitchen counter hard enough that it bounced. The officers escorted her out. She yelled threats over her shoulder as they led her down the hallway. After they left, the officers suggested I get my locks changed, gave me information about filing for a restraining order if she continued harassing me. I thanked them and closed the door. The next morning, I contacted my attorney, a lawyer I'd used for a few matters before, explained the situation about the uninvited entry, refusal to leave, and threats made as the police removed her. I explained concerns about future harassment. My lawyer recommended a restraining order, a protective order that would legally prevent her from contacting me or coming to my home or workplace. I agreed. We filed the paperwork that day. I provided documentation, the threatening text messages, the police report from the previous evening's incident. The restraining order was granted within a week. I had June served with the papers through a professional process server. She called from an unknown number shortly after being served, screaming that I'd regret this. I documented the call and had my apartment locks changed immediately. I got a security system installed with a camera at my front door. Weeks passed. The restraining order seemed to be working. June made no further attempts to contact me or show up at my home. My life returned to a calm normalcy I'd almost forgotten was possible. I reflected a lot during this time on the entire relationship. How I'd missed or willfully ignored red flags from the very beginning. Her lukewarm initial responses should have told me she wasn't that interested. Her manipulation tactics should have been deal breakers the first time I noticed them. But I'd rationalized everything away. Because I was attracted to her. Because the relationship had good moments. Because I'd invested time and emotion and didn't want to admit I'd made a mistake. I'd let her beauty and success excuse behavior I never should have tolerated. I thought about the restaurant incident specifically. The deliberate test she constructed. Her certainty that I'd come crawling back apologizing. It revealed how little she actually valued me as a person. I wasn't a partner to her. I was a resource. Someone to pay bills, boost her ego, and give her what she wanted when she wanted it. The relationship had never been about mutual respect or a genuine connection. It had been about what I could provide for her. And when I finally set a boundary and refused to be manipulated into paying an outrageous bill I'd never agreed to, she'd publicly declared I wasn't good enough for her. In that moment at the restaurant, she'd accidentally told the complete truth. I would never be good enough for her. Because good enough, in her eyes, meant someone with no boundaries, no self-respect, no limits to what they tolerate, and someone who would let themselves be used indefinitely without complaint. I wasn't that person. Didn't want to be that person. Walking away had been the only self-respecting choice available to me. I'm not bitter. I don't think all women are like June. I understand her behavior reflected her character, not some universal truth about relationships. But I'm definitely wiser, more selective, less willing to overlook concerning patterns just because someone is attractive or the relationship has some good moments. Not all of June's friends had agreed with her behavior. At least one had recognized it was wrong and had tried to warn me. That's worth remembering too. Even people in someone's inner circle can see when that person is being unreasonable or manipulative. I wonder sometimes what June told people after everything ended. Whether she admitted to the test. Whether she took any responsibility for how things imploded. Probably not. People like her rarely see themselves as the problem. They blame the person who finally stood up to them. But that's not my concern anymore. Her narrative about our relationship and its ending belongs to her. I don't need to control it or correct it. I know the truth. That's sufficient. Financially, I'm in better shape, too. Without June's expensive tastes constantly pushing me beyond my budget, I've been able to save more and build up my emergency fund. I calculated once, roughly, how much I'd spent on her over our 6 months together. The total was staggering. And she'd still declared I wasn't good enough. Still tested me with that restaurant bill to see if I'd go even further beyond my limits for her. There's no satisfying someone who sees you as a resource rather than a person. The goalposts constantly move. The demands constantly escalate. The only way to win that game is to refuse to play. I've been thinking about what I want in my next serious relationship. Mutual respect, obviously. Someone who values my boundaries instead of constantly testing them. Someone who sees partnership as collaborative rather than transactional. I want someone who's genuinely interested in my thoughts and feelings, not just what I can provide for them. Someone who contributes equally to the relationship in all the ways that matter: emotional support, financial responsibility, time, and effort. I want someone who doesn't need to manufacture drama or tests to feel secure, who communicates directly instead of manipulating situations to get what they want. Someone who would never dream of publicly humiliating me to prove a point or assert dominance. Those aren't unreasonable standards. They're basic requirements for a healthy relationship.